We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the camera journey. It's going to be a little bit of a ramble, so this isn't a whole lot of, how-to or review or anything like that. Right now I'm sitting with, I think the camera that really changed a lot for me. I really started out before the good iPhones. I got one of those little Kodak things. I still have it. It's a little thing, completely unstable. I put it on a tripod. I thought, I want to start making videos for real estate. Went and found this little camera. Started making some videos. Found another little old camcorder I used for a little bit, and then got a better iPhone. My iPhone was better than those cameras. So when I started working here at this finance company, we started just shooting with an iPhone. For my own personal purposes, I bought a G7X Mark II to Canon to kind of vlog with. And that I started seeing the difference of what a difference a good camera could make, and I started falling in love with that. Then I got an M50 because I think it was kind of like the same specs as the 80D at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was the case. I think a lot of vloggers at the time were using Canons, and I grew up with Nikons. I think I'm an old guy. Nikon. When I came here to this office, they had a Nikon. I had to use the iPhone first because I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to do the ISO, the aperture, the f-stops, any of that kind of stuff. So I had to, spend a long time, my time off just trying to figure out how to use them and watching YouTube channels. And once I did, then I really liked the way that looked. Now, that was, I still have the camera. And it's still usable. I thought I needed to get rid of that camera because the autofocus sucked. And this is kind of an autofocus story, actually, because the autofocus was the thing, right? I thought the autofocus sucks on the Nikon. It was hunting everywhere. I was afraid to shoot manual on a tripod. So I bought the M50. And quite honestly, I think that Nikon might have had a better image than the M50. Now that I look back, it's actually a really good looking image. So you get the M50. And then it's got a 30-minute time limit, right? And we're shooting, I was using my G7X, we're shooting a podcast at G7X Mark II. I got my M50, we're doing the podcast, and the camera shut down, right? And at first I didn't know what was going on. I had to go look at the manual, hit up YouTube, and turns out that most of these Canon cameras have these 30-minute antiquated time limits, right? So I thought, okay, well, I need to get a camera that can shoot over 30 minutes. So I looked at everything. But a lot of the cameras are really expensive, right? I looked at Sony's makes good cameras. But I looked at the lens and the total package. That was going to be pretty spendy. I mean, I thought, look, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I have a side interest in potentially, actually I will, in shooting documentaries, just for my personal interest, right? So I thought, well, maybe I'll get a cinema camera. Well, those are really expensive. So the best entry level thing that I could find for a cinema camera, and at the time, I wasn't really aware of the Blackmagic cameras. I'd kind of seen the 4Ks, and at the time, I was scared of Micro Four Thirds, and I didn't get the whole ND filter thing. So I was just kind of scared of that camera. So I got this camera. It looked, it was a little out of my price range. It was kind of expensive, $2,700 or something like that. And then everybody's saying get the Sigma lens, which I got. Which I'm glad I did because that works on all my other cameras and it's a beautiful lens. And then there was just so many things I didn't know how to use on this, right? Like the XLRs. I think I spent I started sweating on a shoot because I didn't know how to use the XLRs. And then I didn't know what a difference that makes. You don't know till you know, right? So all of a sudden I started experiencing better audio. I didn't understand that there was custom picture profiles, and then the wide DR picture profile on this is just so beautiful. It's so interesting. It just gives it more of a kind of a filmic look, less of a DSLR look. Not that there's anything wrong with the DSLR look, and I've seen plenty of people color grading their DSLRs to look amazing. So it's just a different look. And I didn't know how to color grade, right? So out of camera, wide DR is just looking beautiful. So some of the things that really kind of changed the game for me was I bought this one again because I was still hooked on autofocus, because instead of getting a used C100, I was afraid that I was going to need autofocus, right? And so I figured I might as well just get a new one instead of buying one that's got an upgrade. I think it was the, it's got the dual pixel autofocus. So the Mark II's got the dual pixel autofocus. I bought it. I didn't watch enough videos or read enough about it and realized that the autofocus it's not that great on this. Doesn't have like, yeah, it's not that great. The autofocus has got like a little box in the center, and it doesn't go anywhere else. So I found it to be, for me, I guess it's okay if you want to pull the trigger on the focus when you're shooting a little bit. It's all right. I was not very impressed with it, so I just said screw it. I'm gonna shoot manual. So this camera taught me how to shoot manual, which I was afraid of my entire shooting career. Which now I'm like, holy cow, it's a definitely a more organic look. So I'd probably say this camera's changed me, right, as a content creator. It taught me to use manual. I never knew what focus peaking was for. I didn't know what zebras were for. I didn't even, it was amazing to use internal ND filters. I didn't know that buying the cheap ones was screwing up my images. So this has done a tremendous amount for me I started trying to shoot handheld. I used to think I needed a gimbal. Just so much has changed with this camera. And it's 1080. It's not 4K. I'm not really worried about that. Most of the stuff that I bought it for, we shoot 1080 here. I think it's got a really beautiful 1080 image. It does have a 4K sensor. It's just downsampled. So for what it is, without spending like just for the body, $4,000, I think it's probably a great value. I know everybody's going into all these other cameras now, and there's the C100. I'm not spending $4,000 on a body right now, and then I got to get all the lenses to match and the whole nine. It was just too much, right? And we're not shooting 4K, so I'm gonna have this camera can do all the stuff, and I'm not going to use it. So it's been an amazing camera. So why I'm even talking about this is that one, I just want to give some credit to this camera that I'm not planning on changing for what we do here at work anytime soon, especially for our podcasts. But what it did do is inspire me to want a better camera. And I think I mentioned this for like shooting my family trips and such, or just personal, shooting and documenting my life. So I didn't want to spend $3,000 or $4,000 for the Sonys, the Canons. The Canons, as much as I love the Canon products and I bought them, they overheat. I hear they're overheating. I got time limits if I'm going to spend, under $2,500, except for this thing, as far as like a hybrid, like DSLR type camera. So I'm shopping DSLRs. Because I want to take them with me. I want a lower profile. I don't want to take this traveling. It's just too big. You look like you're doing the news or something, right? So shopping around, I looked at the Blackmagic 6K, just kind of a big clunky camera, right? I mean, I think if I was just doing film, and I might consider that camera, but I wanted to take pictures too, and it just seemed big and clunky. I think down the line, if we start shooting 4K and I don't want to spend $3,500 for a camera, I'll probably look at Blackmagic. I'm not going to get the C200, I'm not going to get the C300, and I'm certainly not getting the C70, at least not for that price point for what we're doing right now. I think if I had a bigger project, quite honestly, I'd just rent. At that price point, I'm just going to rent the camera. I think for what we're doing, our small stuff here, under $2,000, I think is pretty good. So anyway, so I'm on this journey right now to find, or I was on this journey to find the camera for my personal use. Now that I'm hooked on a beautiful image, now that I'm learning how to color grade, now that I'm learning how to actually use a camera, but I don't want to spend $3,400, right? So it turns out the camera that it looked the best that I could grow into as far as specs, like if I start wanting to dabble in 4K for my own personal use, was a GH5, the Panasonic Lumix GH5. And I never thought of that camera before because I was so worried about autofocus. And everybody said that the autofocus sucked. But when I really looked at all the boxes I wanted checked, I wanted something that I didn't need a gimbal when I was traveling. I wanted something that was like weather sealed, that I could bang around. I wanted something that didn't have any time limits on it. Had the in-body image stabilization. That thing checked a lot of boxes. The only thing it didn't check was that it was the autofocus sucked, right? I don't care about autofocus anymore. So this camera liberated me from the autofocus shackles, and so now when I look at GH5, it didn't even faze me. I said, okay, this thing's got all the specs that I want. That's micro four thirds. For filmmaking, I don't even think a lot of the big movies I think they're all Super 35. you know, this whole full frame thing is kind of like a DSLR shooter full frame type of thing, and I don't need that much bokeh. I can also get a speed booster. So yeah, I ended up buying it. I'm shooting on it right now. I wanted to test it out a little bit, see what it's capable of. I picked up the 12 to 35. Probably talk a little bit about that on some of my future videos and a little bit about this one. So I'm really excited about that camera. I did not get the Mark II because I thought all the extra features on that camera, I'm not even ready to use all the features on the GH5. So I didn't want to pay extra. For an extra $400. I got a really good ND filter. I was able to you know, get a bag, get a cage, you know, just get a lot of accessories that I was already kind of pushing my limits on what I wanted to spend. So this camera has just made me a better content creator, opened up my abilities to be able to look at other cameras and get excited about them and not worry about things. Look, every camera is going to have a limitation. You got to pick the camera for the job. And I think you just got to work around the limitations, and I'll see how this GH5 works. I mean, this thing certainly has limitations, but for work, it's working great. So anyways, that's my ramble. I know this might have been just kind of a, you know, talking out of the side of my head type of thing today, but hey, I'm on the journey, kind of in the beginning here. I would say I'm getting into intermediate, you know, on the levels of content creator and using these cameras and making cool stuff. I'm in the beginner to intermediate phase. You know, for work, you know, we do it professionally, I guess. And we're starting to come out with some really nice images, but being able to create more content, have it look better, and do stuff personally, I'd say I'm in the beginner, intermediate, and having a lot of fun, just like you probably are. I started a little bit late in the game for all this, but hey, I'm here. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.